Всем привет, дорогие зрители. Хотел поставить вам вот этот отрывок я как раз пост поставил сегодня утром, отрывок из заявления Республиканского комитета, обвинения, вернее, даже правильно сказать, обвинения Байдена, его всей семьи, как бы вот его сына, его брата, в том, что они там награбили кучу денег, чуть ли не доходит там до измены, и он там показывал, в принципе, приводил часть деталей. Вообще весь отчет, что они написали, он на 1000 листов, а он там, в принципе, заметил только немного. Сказал, что вот они будут сейчас продолжать расследовать, будут продолжать бороться. Именно сегодня они вышли это и сказали. Почему? Потому что сегодня как раз Конгресс все-таки стал республиканским. Они взяли большинство, значит, вот эту вот работу комитета будут продолжать и будут внедрять. Действительно, очень интересно он там рассказывает, в чем обвиняет Байдена. Причем не стесняясь, говорит, что он соврал, и говорит про деньги, и про вот этого вот большого парня, в кавычках, то, что у Хантера Байдена нашли письмо, что он сказал, что там надо 10% откидать большому парню, и он это заявляет, что большой парень это Джо Байден, и нашли всех сообщников Хантера, и то все, и фотографии есть, и, короче, очень интересно. Мне вот очень интересно тоже, что подумает американский народ, хотя рейтинг у Байдена довольно-таки низкий, всего 30%, но все равно даже эти 30% должны как бы понять, что можно быть демократом, но не обязательно быть за Байдена, потому что Байден просто, во-первых, не демократ, а диктатор, с тем, что они творят с ФБР и с Министерством юстиции, как они всех зажимают, там, как они уже 3 года прячут вот это вот расследование, Facebook ходили и так далее, соцсети, все это прячут, СМИ официальные все это пытаются спрятать. Вот. Никакой демократии нет, это же понятно, как бы. Короче, надо ему на покой тоже, да. Вот насчет покоя сегодня Нэнси Пелоси, я об этом утром вскользь заметил, Нэнси Пелоси сегодня сказала, что не будет лидером меньшинства демократического конгресса. Значит, придется Конгрессу, вернее не Конгрессу, а демократической партии, которая сидит в Конгрессе, придется выбирать себе нового лидера оппозиции. Я бы хотел сказать, что надеюсь, что в этот раз они выберут кого-то помоложе, поумнее, почестнее, который будет работать именно у которого будет цель именно служить народу. Но мы все знаем, что чудес не бывает, поэтому наверняка выберут такого же, как Пелоси, может быть помоложе чуть-чуть. Я, по крайней мере, надеюсь, что хоть в этом они постараются. И вот, как бы, посмотрим, что будет дальше с расследованием Байдена. Я очень-очень надеюсь, дело уже даже не в том, там, Украина, Россия, вот именно в самом Байдене, не в Америке даже, а вот именно в самом Байдене. Чувак настолько обезбашенно все это делает, что ну вот очень хочется, чтобы он ушел в историю как ворюга полный, как предатель, как изменник и так далее. Вот очень хочется, причем не только он, но и вся его семья, да. Вот эта вот наглость, вот так вот обирать людей, вот эти вот сталкивания стран друг с другом, чтобы воевали и так далее. Очень-очень хочется. Ну, приятного просмотра, не буду задерживать. Всем привет.
All right, well, I want to thank everyone for coming out today. Today we're going to provide you with something that you all aren't used to with respect to congressional investigations, and that's evidence. Committee Republicans have spoken with multiple whistleblowers from numerous schemes involving the Biden family, reviewed Hunter Biden's laptop, and received documents of previously unknown transactions. What we found are business plans aimed at targets around the world based on influence peddling, including with people closely tied to foreign governments like China and Russia. We also found plans made to the United States where the Biden family swindled investors of hundreds of thousands of dollars, all with Joe Biden's participation and knowledge. In 2019, shortly after announcing his campaign for president, Joe Biden told the American people he had nothing to do with and never had conversations with his family about their business dealings. That was a lie. Whistleblowers described President Biden as chairman of the board for these businesses. He personally participated in meetings and phone calls. Documents show that he was a partner with access to an office. To be clear, Joe Biden is the big dog. This evidence raises troubling questions about whether President Biden is a national security risk and about whether he is compromised by foreign governments. Despite the president's claim that he wasn't involved in Biden family business schemes, these photos show Joe Biden meeting with his family associates while vice president. Committee Republicans have identified over 50 countries the Biden family sought businesses in. On the international side of the Biden family business, the deals were often led by Hunter Biden. And that map there behind the play shows all the countries where the Bidens had a footprint in international business dealings. The investigation reveals a family that engaged with some of America's most powerful adversaries, planning to sell one of the largest sources of cobalt for electric vehicles in the world to the Chinese, for example. The Bidens flourished and became millionaires by simply offering access to the family. Among the dozens of shell companies the Bidens set up, there were millions of dollars of wire transfers, flights on Air Force Two to conduct personal business, and meetings with heads of state, all while Joe Biden was aware of what was happening. All the while, he turned a blind eye. Many transactions related to these businesses have raised red flags at U.S. banks. A suspicious activity report, or SAR, is a document a bank must file with the Treasury Department when a transaction is suspected to be related to money laundering or fraud or other types of criminal activity. According to media reports, the Biden family accumulated over 150 SARs. One SAR generated by an American bank to the Treasury Department connects Hunter Biden and his business associates to international human trafficking, among other illegal activities. The money that was being made from foreign principals in the same room as Joe Biden was increasingly spent on furthering illegal activity. The SARs show that Hunter Biden was conducting business with suspected human traffickers. The money gained through influence peddling was funneled to a suspected criminal enterprise, again, one linked to human trafficking. We have repeatedly called on the Biden Treasury Department to release additional financial documents to committee Republicans, but thus far Treasury has refused. We want to know what the Biden administration is trying to hide from the American people and why they are not being transparent. We also found evidence Hunter Biden sought to evade these SARs using his financial advisor, coincidentally a Clinton administration official. We will continue to pursue all evidence, and specifically the SARs and bank records in the new Congress. As part of our investigation, we have evidence that the finances, credit cards, and bank accounts of Hunter and Joe Biden were commingled, if not shared. And on some accounts, at least, red flags were raised by banks to the account owner or owners indicating suspicious or illegal activity. One of Hunter's closest associates, Eric Sherwin, was accessing Joe Biden's money and writing checks to reimburse Hunter. Sherwin arranged the Biden's international deals around the world. At the same time, he was a frequent visitor to the White House, and Joe Biden during the Obama administration, visiting close to 30 times, and sometimes with international business partners and Hunter, according to Hunter's calendar. Sherwin was also the president of Hunter's company and was appointed by President Obama to a position in the administration. After an apparent falling out with Sherwin, Hunter began coordinating business himself, and increasingly the deals brought in Joe Biden as a direct equity holder. One of these deals involves the sale of American natural gas to China. Evidence suggests Joe Biden had a 10% equity stake through his son. And behind Glenn and Andrew is a map from Hunter's laptop. This was a PowerPoint presentation on his laptop in Chinese that they used in working with the Chinese. Now, let's think about this for a second. At a time when Americans are suffering from high energy prices because of this administration's terrible energy policy, we find evidence that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden were involved in a scheme to try to get China to buy liquefied natural gas, and from a whistleblower to try to get their foot in the door. Hunter brought in millions of dollars from this deal from entities tied to the Chinese government. In emails obtained by committee Republicans, Hunter wanted keys made for Joe Biden and Jim Biden, his office mate. He provided Joe Biden's personal cell number and called him his partner. The other partners in that deal were two people closely tied to the Chinese Communist Party. And that's the, behind Andy and Jim, that's the email where Hunter sent to the landlord requesting keys, and the Chinese partners were on the email, and where he said, you know, Joe would need a key, and he even put Joe's cell phone number on there. Domestically, Jim Biden, Joe Biden's brother, used the Biden name to enrich himself in return for the promise that when Joe Biden became president in 2020, business partners would get rich by having access to a future Biden administration. By promising access to financing through Middle Eastern, Russian, and Chinese connections he made through Joe Biden, and by bringing his brother Joe Biden onto phone calls, Jim Biden was able to convince companies to give him loans of hundreds of thousands of dollars that he never repaid. The Biden administration has answered none of our requests for information regarding the Biden family or the financial transactions they engaged in. Instead, the Biden administration has spent over $250,000 to staff to, quote, deflect Hunter stories. Protecting the president's son who has committed crimes with Americans' tax dollars is a waste. The domestic and international scheme that promised access to wealth in a future Biden administration constitute fraud. And the president's participation in enriching his family is, in a word, abuse of the highest order. Rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse will be the primary goal of a Republican House Oversight Committee. As such, this investigation will be a top priority.